Well, there's something about getting that first ripe tomato in your garden every year. You know, the first ripe tomato, perhaps like the biggest tomato, gives a gardener certain bragging rights, like that hole in the one for the golfer, or like that big catch for the fisherman. And there are some techniques that you can use to ensure that you could be the first one in your neighborhood to have the early ripe tomato this year. We're going to show you a few techniques here on doing this, and it's really quite simple. It's just you have to plan ahead to do this. First of all, we planned to plant our tomatoes about the third week of March. And it's a pretty chilly day today, but I'm not too concerned about that. I chose a real early variety. This variety happens to be Early Girl. Started the plants myself in a sunny window. I started the seed about January the 20th. Then after a few weeks, we took the plants, plant some of them into a greenhouse. Another one I transplanted into a cold frame and grew them out in the cold frame. You can see the difference. This plant is considerably smaller than this one, although they're both really the same age plants. But they both already are beginning to have a little bit of a flower blossom beginning to form there. I'm going to use the bigger plant today, although this one's been hardened off a little more. I'm not really too concerned about losing it because of cold damage. About 2 weeks before you want to plant your transplants in the garden, you should come in and put a piece of black plastic down to warm the soil. Prior to putting the black plastic down, we worked up the row. I dug my holes about 8 inches deep and 8 inches wide. I marked underneath the plastic, or else to the side of the plastic, where that hole is, so I will know where to plant my plant when I come in to do it. My formula for planting early tomato plants is to refill the hole with about 1/3 depth of good rotted manure or compost, and then the rest 2/3 with good soil and also with compost mix. Then I mixed in about 1/3 of a cup of agricultural lime, about 1/4 of a cup of a good complete fertilizer like 12-12-12 or 10-20-10, and then mix those all up together. Now I'll plant my tomato in this hole. I know where my hole is underneath the plastic because it has been marked, so I will come in and make an X in that plastic. The reason for the black plastic, of course, is to warm that soil, and that soil is quite warm underneath this plastic, even though it did get down to 20 degrees here in Stillwater last night. I'll choose my tomato plant very carefully, remove it from the container, and I want to plant at least I want to have at least 1/3 of this plant transplanted down into the soil so the bottom third is covered up. I'll remove those leaves, keeping in mind that everything that's underneath the soil line of this tomato plant is going to produce some roots eventually. So I want to dig my hole real deep, set my tomato plant in there, fill it back up with the soil, transplant it so that you can tap the soil firmly around the bottom. And then for a little cutworm protection, I've taken a simple drinking straw, cut it into lengths, and then have taken my little knife and slit down the side, so I've made a little collar then that I can put around the stem of that plant to protect it somewhat from cutworm damage. And then as the tomato plant grows, the straw will come off of it. You don't even have to have that straw all the way around. It's just that the cutworm should not be able to make a complete circle around that plant. The next thing I want to do is add some transplanting solution, about a tablespoon of a good water-soluble fertilizer to a gallon of water, and then I have my transplant planted. Now I want to protect it from frost. There are many ways we can do this. I'm going to use the walls of water. The walls of water is a very good way to protect this. I've seen the wall of water protect plants down to as low as 25 degrees. The way to do this is to get a bucket, set over your plant, get your wall of water, being sure that the right end is up, the open end is up, place it around the bucket, And then we'll get our water and begin filling it with water. Actually, the bucket is a frame to hold this wall of water in place while you fill it up. I started filling the cells, one on each side, to give it some stability, and then filled every other cell about a half full, then coming back in and filling the rest of them completely. Once we've got them all filled, we can reach in and take the bucket off the plant. It will close down. Now I'm going to put my label in there because I did fail to do that earlier, so that I know this is an early girl plant planted on March the 21st, the second day of spring. In order to give this plant some more protection on cold nights, I'll get a string and tie it tightly around the top. On warm days, this can be opened up. This plant will really survive well. As I said, I've seen them survive very cold weather. The ice has frozen solidness above my walls of water before, and the plant's been fine. There are many ways, many other plant growing structures and enclosures you can use. We'll be showing some more of those on some future Oklahoma gardening shows. I hope you have success with your early tomatoes.